Hello friends, welcome to UGC EPG Pathshala. I am Atika Tajdar from the Department of Geography, Jamia Millia Islamia. Today we will discuss the basic concept of urbanization and urbanism. Urbanization and urbanism, its meaning and concept. Since the 20th century, because of faster growth of cities and emergence of new urban centers across the globe, urbanization has become a buzzword. The term urban refers to a settlement having a set of characteristics which rural settlements do not possess. These are fairly large and compact settlement, cosmopolitan population, high population density, predominance of secondary and tertiary economic activities, well-developed transportation system, etc. And urbanization simply is the process of becoming urban. However, more often than not, urbanization is defined as an increase in the proportion of the total population that live in urban areas. This is the demographic meaning of the urbanization and easy to measure. The only issue is with the identification of urban areas, and there is no general consensus about it. Different countries have different criteria to define a settlement and as urban, which have been discussed in detail in later stage. Initially, increase of population in towns or in urban areas leads to some other changes like concentration of market facilities, different type of economic activities, provision of better services and amenities, improvement of transportation system, etc. Later, these changes attract more people to the town or urban area. Thus, urban growth and increase in the population of towns and cities occur. Therefore, urbanization not only leads to urban growth, but it brings some socio-economic changes in the society. That is why, in a broader sense, urbanization signifies the process of demographic as well as socio-economic processes changes through which an area acquires urban character. It has been observed that the level of urbanization is closely linked with the level of development. So, urban areas play a crucial role in the overall process of development, and urban areas have better amenities and services, higher literacy rate, more educational achievement, facility of vocational education, better standard of living, higher aspirations, higher contraceptive production rate, lower fertility rate and small family size and low mortality rate. In urban area, there is greater impact of globalization, industrialization and secularization, greater reach of mass media, better infrastructures, road, electricity, water supply, and they are close to the seat of powers. While these are the ideal feature of urban areas, there are huge differences among these across the urban spaces in different parts of the world. Furthermore, the process of urbanization also varies across the space and time. In 19th century, just after the Industrial Revolution, urbanization in Europe acquired a faster pace because of large-scale migration of industrial laborers to the cities, as a result of which cities became very large in size and standard of living deteriorated. Frequent outbreak of disease, higher death rate, high level of poverty, unemployment, lack of health institutions, political instability and crime among others were very common in most of the 19th century cities in Europe. On the other hand, in the last century, rapid urbanization and urban growth occurred in the developing countries mainly because of comparatively high rate of natural increase. While global capital is playing an important role in the growth of large cities in developing countries, small cities and towns continue to grow based on regional or national trade and commerce. Most striking thing in the cities, especially the big cities of developing countries, is the high level of socio-economic inequality. On the one hand, there are gated communities which represent the residence of rich and or middle class population. On the other hand, millions of urban poor live in slum and other informal settlement where availability of basic services and quality of life is very poor. Definitional and conceptual problems. As mentioned earlier, the urban refers to those settlements that have some distinct characteristics which rural areas do not have. However, it is normal that some distinct urban characters can be found in rural areas too. On the other hand, some typical rural characters also represent in urban areas as well. And for identifying urban areas, a clear definition must be there which differentiates an urban settlement from a rural settlement. Setting up that definition or some objective criteria for identifying urban settlement is very difficult because nature of settlement vary from country to country, region to region. That is why there is no uniform definition of urban. Each country has its own criteria to define urban, which varies from country to country. Therefore, if we survey different countries' criteria to define urban, we would find that there are huge variations. Some countries define urban areas on the basis of size of population, while others define urban areas on the basis of amenities and facilities. In many European countries, an area with population size of 2000 or more is called urban, while it is as low as 100 in Peru and as high as 30,000 in Japan. On the other hand, in the countries like Panama, in addition to the threshold of population size, which is 1500 in the case of Panama, several urban characters like water supply, sewerage, etc. are considered to define a settlement as urban. Chile is one of such countries where urban areas are defined only on the basis of the presence of some definite urban characteristics. South Africa, Costa Rica, Guatemala, etc. are the countries where only administrative criterion or the presence of local government is used to define the urban areas. India is one of few countries where the definition of urban has multiple criteria which can be identified without subjectivity. Here the term urban is defined as all the places with urban local government, as municipal corporation, municipality, municipal council, notified area, cantonment board, etc. and those places which have the population size of 5,000 or more, 400 population per square kilometer area and at least 75% male main workers should be engaged in non-farm activities. Definition of urban not only varies among the nations but also changes time to time. For instance, in India before 1961, all the municipalities, all the civil lines and all other places with 5,000 or more population were considered as urban. In 1961, a more stringent definition was adopted, which is apart from urban local bodies, all the settlement with population size of 5,000 or more, 400 population density and at least 75% of the workforce engaged in non-agricultural activities. Thereafter, several minor modifications have been made to the definition of urban in India, and the latest definition as adopted in 2011 has been mentioned in the previous paragraph. From these examples of the definition of urban adopted by different countries, two things are clear: that the data on urbanization of individual countries based on their respective definition of urban are not comparable, and urban data of any individual country may not be comparable in different point of time. To overcome this problem, recently the Geopolis approach has proposed a definition of urban which claims its applicability across the globe. According to this approach, any settlement agglomeration with population size of 10,000 is urban. Here, the term settlement agglomeration means continuous spread of build-up area which are not more than 200 meters apart from each other. It should be mentioned that this concept is to be some extent similar to the definition of urban adopted by France. Measurement of urbanization. Urbanization is a multi-dimensional phenomenon, and to measure the different dimensions of urbanization, different measures are necessary. Here we will discuss some of the important measures which are frequently used to explain urbanization process. Growth of urban population and its component. The growth of urban population is calculated in the same way as we calculate the growth rate of total population. Here we only consider urban population instead of total population. Popularly, two types of growth formula are used, such as exponential and linear. The principle of exponential growth is population continues to change continuously over time. On the other hand, basic principle of linear growth model is quantity of a thing, which is here is urban population increases by the same amount every year. Urban growth rate in log natural, urban population size in the base year, urban population size in the terminal year, difference between terminal year and base year. With the linear model, components of urban growth. We have already mentioned that urban growth is the increase of population living in the particular city or urban area. This increase can occur in four different ways: natural increase of population, which is simply birth minus death; net migration to the city or the concerned urban area; and increase in the area of the city due to the change in statutory limit. However, with respect to the increase of urban population in a whole country or a state and so on, the fourth component add, which is reclassification of area as urban from rural or the emergence of new towns. Degree or level of urbanization. Degree or level of urbanization is defined as the percentage of urban population to total population of an area. Following index is most commonly used for measuring the level of urbanization and is calculated as level of urbanization is equal to urban population divided by total population into 100. The calculation and interpretation of index is very easy. Higher the percentage of urban population means higher the level of urbanization. Tempo of urbanization. The tempo or speed of urbanization refers to the change in the level of urbanization over a specified period of time. It shows the speed of urbanization. It is measured either as an absolute change in percentage point or as a rate of change in the percent urban between two time period. It is calculated using the formula below. Tempo of urbanization in 2001 or 2011 is equal to difference in the level of urbanization during 2001 and 2011 divided by level of urbanization in 2001 into 100 upon 10. Urbanization in India. As mentioned earlier, developing countries experienced a fairly high pace of urbanization in the 20th century. But since the last 2-3 decades of the country, growth rate of urbanization in these countries started to decline, and this trend is still continuing. In this backdrop, here we will briefly review the trend and pattern of urbanization in India in the last few decades. As revealed in table first, before independence, rate of urbanization as well as its growth rate was very low, which was attributed to high level of mortality owing to the frequent outbreak of epidemics, famines, etc. However, immediately after the independence, which is in 1951, there was a sudden increase in the level of urbanization as well as growth rate of urbanization because of the migration of refugees from Pakistan and Bangladesh. In the next decade, which is in 1951 and 1961, there was huge dip in rate of urban growth, which was the fallout of major change in the definition of urban on the eve of 1961 census, which resulted in the disclassification of many earlier towns to villages. After the slump in the growth rate in 1961, it again picked up in 1971 and attained its peak in 1981. High growth rate of urbanization in 1970s was attributed by the emergence of good number of new towns on the eve of census 1981. However, since 1980s, the growth of urbanization has slowed down due to declining or stagnant rural-urban migration and slow and ever declining rate of natural increase of population in urban areas. Here, it is important to note that in spite of a continuation of these two factors, the growth rate of urbanization was not declined in the decade 2000. Rather, it was stagnant. This was possible because of the unprecedented emergence of new towns on the eve of the census 2011, which accounted for 40% of the total decadal 2001 to 2011 urban growth rate in the country. With regard to the pattern of urbanization in India, there is a positive relationship between the level of urbanization and level of economic development of the state. From the figure first, it may be seen that among the large states, southern and western states have comparatively high level of urbanization, while the state in eastern part of the country lag behind, and this pattern corresponds to that of the state level per capita income. It is true that the rate of natural increase in the highly urbanized state is comparatively lower, but as they, like Kerala and Tamil Nadu, are the exception, attract migrants from other states. Cities and towns in these states continues to grow at comparatively higher rate. Let us discuss about urbanism. In the previous section, we have discussed the concept of urbanization, which simply signifies the process of becoming urban, and an urban area has several socio-economic and demographic as well as spatial connotations which a rural area does not possess. In the context of urban areas or cities, the concept of urbanism is very important, which implies the ways of life of the city dwellers. Sociologists define urbanism simply as a way of life. It displays an organization of society in the context of complex division of labor, high level of technology, high mobility, interdependence amongst its residents in achieving better economic function, and impersonality in social relations. Louis Wirth, an American sociologist and member of the Chicago School of Sociology, coined the term urbanism in 1938, and he has given 4 characteristics of urbanism. The first one is transiency. An urban dweller relation with other is short-lived, and he or she likely to forget his or her previous acquaintances and engage with new ones. Second one, superficiality. An urbanite has very few people with whom he interacts, and his relationship with them are nothing but impersonal and formal. People meet each other in a very segmental manner, and that too for meeting some need in their life. Anonymity. People residing in urban area do not know each other deeply. Mutual acquaintance between the resident, which is explicitly observed in a neighborhood, is absent here. Individualism. Urbanites give more value to their own vested interest only. Wirth has identified 3 aspects of city: population size, population density, and heterogeneity, which directly determine the degree of urbanism in an urban society. The effect of population size. The larger the population size, greater is the possibility of diversification and individualization in society. Similarly, larger the population, greater is the chance of specialization and functional heterogeneity of social norms. Competition as well as traditional mechanism of social control replace primary relation of kinship as a way of organizing society. Impersonality and segregation of social interaction too escalate with the size of the city or town. The effect of population density. High population density reinforces the effect of large population size. It also results into greater stress as well as tolerance for living closely with strangers. Low density city growth causes development of the fringe and higher land value in suburbia. Increase of population density led to competition by compounding the effect of population size. The effect of heterogeneity. The greater the heterogeneity, more would be the tolerance among social sects. Heterogeneity permits ethnic and class barriers to be broken down. Individual role and contacts become compartmentalized in accordance with the different circle of contacts. Anonymity and dispersonalization in public life escalate. According to him, urbanism has several harmful impacts on society as it lead to loosen the unity in family, make people isolate, tend to postpone marriage, lower the reproduction rate, etc. On the contrary, the positive effect of urbanism are it promotes freedom and toleration, etc. Although Worth claimed his theoretical statement as general to all cities, these can be applied to the industrial cities also. What is true for the urbanism of Western societies may not be true in India. Dubey in 2013 has identified several key elements of urbanism in the context of India. These are as follows: dilution of the function of family, kinship and jati, formal and impersonal human relationship, relaxation of social norms, prevalence of secularism, higher degree of privacy in life. Organization of life is based on community organization and voluntary associations. Level of income or economic condition of the individual determines their identity. People are aspired to the higher standard of living. Conclusion. In conclusion, it can safely be commented that urbanization is a broader concept which encompasses changing socio-economic, demographic and spatial dimension of urbanizing area, albeit the concept is often restricted to the increase of proportion of population living in urban areas of a country only. On the contrary, urbanism is a purely sociological concept which deals with the urban way of life. Therefore, it is expected that urbanization leads to urbanism, but that does not happen always. A settlement can acquire the status of urban without much change in the way of life. In fact, in a small city, a town, we find that the way of life remains in transition. Here, some sort of relaxation in social norms are there. People have the aspiration for higher standard of living. Interpersonal relationship become partly formal. On the other hand, kinship, caste system, etc. still play a crucial role in social life. People's identity is not only determined by the income, but by kinship too. Unity in family is not at all diluted, rather sometimes it is seen that urban dwellers maintain a good relationship with other family members who will reside in rural area and frequently visit there. In fact, urbanism is a gradual and tardy process that the urbanization is. A typical rural area can acquire urban status merely because of setting up the large industry and associated change in economic landscape in the area. However, that does not necessarily mean that way of life will also change suddenly. Thank you.